then we can generate good intention, motivation by thinking the purpose of my life is to be able to be beneficial, help, service to not only oneself, but to all sentient beings, directly, indirectly, as much as we can. And even though there are so many different ways of helping and being beneficial, the best way to help is to help them to free them from their own suffering, cause of suffering, the defilement, delusion, the obscurations. And to help them to find not only temporary pleasure and happiness, but ultimate, lasting true happiness. And to be able to do that, we ourselves need to be free from our own delusions, need to develop our own positive qualities. And actualize our own potential, the fully awakened state, as soon as possible. And in order to achieve that fully enlightened state, then we need to develop highest level of loving kindness, compassion, conventional bodhicitta mind, and ultimate bodhicitta mind, the wisdom relies on emptiness directly. And to be able to develop those qualities in the highest level, and to develop them and cultivate them, we need to reflect, contemplate, meditate, and practice. And for that we have to be reminded of those practices all the time. Otherwise, even we know intellectually, we forget and unable to apply. And for that very reason, I'm going to listen to the teachings, reflect, contemplate on them. And I'm going to apply and implement them, whatever I learn, as much as possible in my everyday life. Sangye chodan soge chonam la chanchu padu dani jaksu she daki choshe gibe sonam ki chola penje sangye drupa shu Sangye chodan soge chonam la chanchu padu dani jaksu daki choshe gibe sonam ki chola penje sangye drupa shu Sangye chodan chogi chonam la chanchu padu dani katso daki choshe gibe sonam yola penche sangye drupa kanye de jeni zone dao de tombe che de chuni tenje le dodam de la chao so. Yes, So, just to summarize what we have discussed yesterday. So, whatever difficulties, problems, challenges that we encounter, face in our life, whether it's on physical level, emotional level, mental level, whether it is created by ourselves, whether it's created by someone or some environment, whatever, from wherever, whenever we are faced with that, then instead of blaming outside there, we try to blame it all to the selfish attitude, the self-centeredness. And then we try to reflect, contemplate, meditate on kindness of all sentient beings. And when you have less selfish attitude or self-centeredness, and when you are able to feel kindness of others, then we will have less conflict with others. When we have less conflict with others, then your life will be more peaceful, more joyful. When you don't feel any conflict with anyone, whether it's sentient beings or whether it is an environment. So, and then also when you have less self-centeredness, and when you feel the kindness of others, your mind has been moistured to grow the seed of loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. And so to be able to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta become very easy when we have that kind of foundation or that kind of moisture in our mind. And with loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, then it gives you incredible inner strength, confidence and courage. And with that kind of confidence, courage and inner strength, you can deal with any situation without being overwhelmed, without being discouraged, without being feeling down. So, and also with that kind of loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, then we create more positive karma, cause for our happiness, and through that we have more happiness, more happy state of being, mind, and it leads us closer and closer to our own highest potential, the fully awakening state. And also we'll be able to be more and more helpful and beneficial, not only to oneself, but others as well. And so in order to reduce and overcome that selfish attitude and to increase sense of loving kindness and compassion, then during the meditation, then we do the practice of donglen, taking and giving. So you try to take all the sufferings and pain of suffering and cause of all suffering on yourself as you breathe in, and then you can imagine destroying your self-centeredness, and then when you breathe out, you visualize, you feel that you are sending all your happiness, all your virtues, in the form of white light with the breath, and then them receiving the happiness, cause of happiness. And so you do that practice again and again, and through by that practice, then our selfish attitude or self-centeredness started to become more weak and weak. Loving kindness, compassion started to become more and more strong, more and more powerful. And so in order to do that, in our meditation, we try to do that as much as possible. And then when we come out of that meditation, and when we engage into the world with the world, then things appears, different objects appears, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, different. And due to that, then we have when things appear, something positive, attractive, beautiful, helpful, we get more attached to it. When something appears to us as unattractive, unpleasant, not good, bad, then we tend to have aversions and dislikings, and that can also, through that, then it lead to anger, hatred, and that. And when we have sense of neutral, then more sense of ignorance arises. And so when those arises, again recognizing whatever negative emotions that is arising, and then with that, then recognizing that you are the not only one, there are so many others who are suffering same way like you because of those negative emotions. And therefore, you try to transform it by into virtues, into the path, by saying, by me experience, may they never have the experience, may I be able to experience on behalf of them, may I be able to take all those negative emotions, may they wrap in on me, and may they have all the positive emotion, virtues, all the happiness. May I be able to do that. And then you can dedicate, pray for that, and then you can do the Tonglen again with that. And so we try to do that in relation to the conventional bodhicitta. And then in relation to the wisdom part, ultimate bodhicitta mind, then again, whenever any object appear to us, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, whatever object appear to us in whatever way, through our analysis, meditations, recognizing they are empty of true existence as positive, truly existing or absolutely existing as nice as it appeared to us, or there is nothing like that objectively. Also there is nothing the way it appeared bad to us, even that there is no badness objectively, truly, absolutely from objective side, and neutral, all of them. And so seeing all of them, all those objects that appear to our mind subjects are totally empty of absolute, truly existing from its objective side. So destroying the object that we are attached to, which we are aversion, which we have attached to, or to which we have aversions. So when we are kind of in meditation, when we kind of dissolve and destroy that object, then there is nothing to hold on for our mind in attachment or aversion, whatever. So then we try to do that, and see they all are like illusion, like a dream. All those objects, not real as it appeared to us, not true as it appeared to our mind. And then not only those objects, but even the mind itself that is perceiving the object in whatever way it is perceiving, even that mind itself again is empty. Even the subject mind that is perceiving those objects in whatever way it is objecting, positively, negatively, you know, correctly, incorrectly, whatever, but even that, the very subject, the mind itself, also is just like the external object. If you try to find, then you cannot find, and they are also empty of truly inherent existence. So also, there's nothing to cling and grasp on even the subject, the mind itself. And then not only the mind, even the very path, the wisdom, and the ultimate truth, which help us to overcome clinging to the external object as well as internal object to the mind, even that itself is also empty. Similarly, so all the phenomena, without any exceptions, all the samsara, nirvana, all the external, internal world, everything that appears and exists, all of them are empty. Empty of truly inherent existence. And so trying to remain in that meditation on that emptiness. So everything exists only on the basis of merely imputations. So therefore there is nothing solid, concrete to really hold on. No object to really cling and grasp and hold on. And so you try to meditate in that way as much as possible, and then when you come out of meditation, and then when we engage into the world, again, everything's appear to us, our senses, our mind, mental, our sense consciousness and mental consciousness, everything again appear as real, truly existence, and then reminding ourselves, even though it appear to be true and really existence, but they are not like that. They are like illusions. The way they appear to us is not the way things exist. And so reminding ourselves all of things are like illusions. So therefore there is no reason to be so attached and clinging when something appears positive, pleasant, and also there is also reasons and to be so upset and have strong aversion and disliking and so forth when things appear some unpleasant, because there is nothing real in that. It is just like an illusion, just like a dream. So with that reminding, then we try to train, reminding that and training to see that, and so that we don't get caught up in attachment, aversions, and all other negative thoughts. And then having, training such meditations on emptiness and conventional bodhicitta in that way. Then when we engage into again our life and everyday life, then we face all kinds of different situations. Sometimes things are better, sometimes things are not so great, sometimes very difficult, and sometimes it feels like, sometimes we might feel like burdened by the life, endless kind of problems, one after another. Feel like never-ending problems. So we might be faced with all those different kind of challenges, difficulties. And when we are when we do face of that, adversary situation, conditions, whatever, due to environment, due to sentient beings, physical, emotional, whatever, again, recognizing that, and then recognizing that we are in those state of pain and suffering, and then through that, then also recognizing others are also suffering like us in one way, another way. Some of them very similar, some of them a little bit less, some of them much more worse. But as long as we are in samsara, we all are suffering to a certain degree. Some of us are suffering on physical level, some of others are suffering more on emotional level or more on mental level. And different, recognizing, and then with our own experience, then we try to understand others' pain, recognize others' pain, relate with the other pains, and then that when you really can feel the pain and their suffering, then loving kindness, compassion, the wish to see them free from suffering comes easily. Through that, then wishing them to be free from suffering, cause of suffering, wishing them to see happiness and cause of happiness, and wanting to free them from suffering and cause of suffering by yourself, and wanting them to lead them to happiness. And then with that, then that then by me experiencing that, may they never have the experience. May I be able to experience on behalf of them. May all their suffering come, and on top of that, if we are, then may all of their suffering, ripen above me, so they can be relief of suffering. May all happiness and virtues ripen on them, so they can experience happiness and joy. So through that kind of practice, if we are able to do that, then we are able to transform all this adversary condition to the path, something positive, something to develop our inner growth. Instead of being overwhelmed by that, we transform in something to become more stronger, to become more compassionate, to become more loving, caring, concerned of others. And when actually from our deep of heart, when you really kind of, wish their suffering to ripen on yourself, not just the word, but from your deep of your heart, when you really feel, of course, sometimes at the very beginning, it doesn't really come from heart. Maybe we're just repeating the word. And we try to feel that word. At the very beginning, we have little feeling, but maybe not so intense. With the practice, then slowly, you really feel just like a loving parents for their child. They really can feel if they can take on the child's suffering on themselves, like they don't have to suffer. Similarly, you can feel like that, and when you feel really that, then you are not afraid of pain and suffering, because not only you are willing to experience whatever pain, suffering that you experience, but you are on top of that, you are willing to take other suffering on yourself. So that means you have incredible courage, strength. When you have that really feeling of that, then there is a sense of inner feeling and courage. And when you have that sense of such a strong inner courage, and strength to be able to take, willing to take, even 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times more sufferings on top of whatever you are experiencing, of all other suffering. So then, to deal with this suffering, it feels nothing. It feels nothing. You know, you are willing to take on, it is like you are willing to kind of carry on, 60 kgs of burden. And now you find you are only carrying 5 kg. There is the strength, willingness to take on 60, but you are carrying 5, it feels so light. Do you get it? It's something, you are carrying something, there is some burden, but it feels so light because of your mindset, because you are totally in your mind, you are willing to take 60, 100 kgs. And now what you are carrying is just 5, 10. It feels nothing. It doesn't feel any burden. And because your mindset. And so when you do that, then one can actually feel like that. And so then whatever challenges, difficult suffering that we face in our life, one can feel very light of that. And therefore not being overwhelmed by that. Whereas at the moment, because at the moment, our mindset is that I can't take even 1 kg, even half kg. Do you get it? Our mindset is like that. I can't deal with any problem. I can't deal with any suffering. So we have that. And so even a small problem, even the small challenge we feel it's a big, huge, because of our mind. But when you train in Tonglen and loving kindness in that way, then you are training your mindset to willingness to take not just one problem, but all the problem, all the suffering of everyone's. And when you train your mind, that mindset, then, and when you do face, if you do face any problem, then you see, oh, it's so small, it's so light. And so therefore, that is why, some of the great beings, masters from all different traditions of spiritual path, who have been great examples, inspirations, even though they face a lot of challenges, a lot of struggles, difficulty in their life, they never give up to be beneficial, to be kind, to compassion. They were never overwhelmed by all of that. They continue to overcome all of that because of their incredible, that kind of mindset. They have a very strong inner strength, courage to take on whatever challenge is difficult in order to be more compassionate, in order to create more compassionate world, in order to create more better world, and to help others. On the other hand, we are too self-centered, self-obsessed, I don't want any problem, any suffering. And I want everything perfect all the time. I want everything perfect all the time. That kind of mindset make our life much more miserable. Much more miserable. Then even the small problem become a big problem. Or feel big problem. It's not the problem itself. whether it become an unbearable kind of overwhelming, or it become a very small. Not the problem itself, it is your mindset that is dealing with that. For someone, that problem seems no problem at all. It's not a problem, because their mindset, they think, why are you so complaining about it? It's just such a small thing, Why are you making a big deal about it? It's such a small thing. Because for them it's very small, they can deal with it. They can just kind of brush it, easily. But for someone, they cannot do that. It feels it's a big deal, it's a big problem. The situation hasn't changed, it's the same problem. But for two persons, for one is a very nothing, not a problem, or even it's from very small. For another is a huge problem, big problem. And because of them, their mindset, the way they look at things, and the training of mind. And so therefore, if we can do that, then definitely, if we train our mind to do that, then life will be, it is samsara, but it wouldn't be double samsara. Okay? At the moment, being in samsara because of our physical such things and mind and all of that, there is a little bit of samsara, and then on top of that, then again, not being able to deal properly with all of that, then we create double samsara. So it's like there is a pain, then on top of that, the wound, you rub with the salt and chili, and even there is the wound is a little bit painful, discomfort, but then you don't have to make it more painful and more discomfort by rubbing it with salt and chili. That's what we do. We are already in samsara, and on top of that, then we add up everything more. Due to our mind. And so I think that, and then the supreme method is accumulated by the 4 practices in the as part of transforming adversarial condition. So when those difficult situations, when we encounter difficult situations, challenging situations, unpleasant situations, from karmic point of view, it's due to our own karma. It's due to our own karma that is manifesting. The primary cause of all this problem in our karma manifesting. That is the principal primary cause. And all others, the environment, the others are just a secondary cause. They are not the primary cause. And so from when we understand that, understanding that is due to my own karma, negative karma that is manifesting, and therefore if I don't want such unpleasant experience in the future, then I have to purify the cause of that. So I have to purify all those negative karma. If I want better situations, more pleasant situations, it is not enough just wishing. You have to create the cause and conditions. Just wishing a fruit tree to grow in the garden, and if you don't do anything, it is not going to grow. You have to plant the seed, create the cause and condition it to grow. Same way, if you want something different situation, more pleasant situation, then we have to create cause and conditions. That means creating more positive karma, merit. Mm. And then making offerings to the, if there is any kind of harm by some kind of spirit or other unseen beings, due to our karma, again, they get kind of involved. It's due to our karmic magnet, we fool them, and then they act in sudden, and then in order to kind of clear that karmic connections in a negative way, then we try to develop loving kindness, compassion to them, and then make offering to them, dharma offering to them. Instead of having a negative, harsh feeling, ill will feeling, we try to make offerings. And not only make offerings, mentally, willing to take any other's harm because of our karma, because we owe them, because there is something we owe them, and in order to clear that, is like, you took something from them in the past, and so now you have to give back. And even though you don't want to give, but you have to give back. And so with that, then, understanding that what you owe that is what you are giving. And so that I give everything so that we are done with that, and so we don't have any problem anymore. We don't have to deal with that. And then making offering to the protectors, so that they can help us to clear all the obstacles, especially obstacles in our practice, external, internal, secret of the obstacles, different obstacles, and to help, to support us. And so then, so these are the 4 practices, okay? Purifying the negative karmas through the 4 opponent powers, and creating the positive karma, the virtues, merit, and then making offerings to the spirit, and then making offerings to the Dharma protectors. So that are the so those practice should be accompanied by that. And then the 4th, integrate the practice of single lifetime. In brief, the essence of instruction is to train in 5 powers. The 5 powers themselves are the great vehicles, preserve. So, okay, that is another. So when we talk about the instruction on 5 powers, so the instruction on 5 power while we are still alive or now, and then the 5 power at the time of death, that act as a core or transference of the consciousness. So the 5 power, that is explaining here, the power of motivations or intentions. So the power of the intention, motivations, like every day when we get up, the first thing Maybe when you are in the bed, maybe you can think how fortunate, lucky that I was able to wake up today, and I have this precious human life, which is full of potentials. Therefore, I must make it useful, meaningful, not wasted, and so may I be able to make my life to cultivate loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. And through that loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta, the conventional awakened bodhicitta mind, may I be able to achieve fully enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. So generating the bodhicitta motivations. And may I be most compassionate, kind, service to all sentient beings throughout my life. Until I achieve enlightenment, and particularly this particular life, especially this year, this month, this week, especially today. Then may I be always think of helping and benefiting others. May I be service to them. So cultivating that kind of strong bodhicitta mind, to be more compassionate, loving, caring, wise, and making a strong motivation, intention that we will not make all the effort not to hurt and harm others. So, starting with that motivations, can be very beneficial. Of course, one, everything that we do, whether it become a dharma or not, whether it become a Mahayana dharma or not, it all depends on motivations. Secondly, everything starts with a wish, motivations. Everything starts with wish, motivation. And if you have that kind of wish, motivation, then we will be able to continue that throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, year, and life. If we can make one day with that kind of intention, motivation, if you are able to, and not only intention, motivation, but throughout the day, being mindful and trying to live according to that motivations as much as possible, then your one day become meaningful. And one day, 2 days, then week become meaningful. Week by week, month become meaningful. Month by month, year become meaningful. Year by year, your life become meaningful. So, that is the and second, so that is the power of the intention and motivation. Then next is the power of the familiarity. So even though you had a good intention and motivations, but if you don't practice, then of course it's hard to keep that continuity, and so throughout the day, then we try to meditate, practice, and familiarize to develop the two bodhicitta, the mind. throughout the day, every opportunity we get, with being very mindful throughout the day, and then whenever we get any opportunity to practice and get familiar with the practice of the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta mind, we try to do that. Sometimes we do in meditation sessions. Sometimes when we are out in the world, not in meditation, when we are doing job, when we are with someone, and when we are whatever, then certain circumstances arise, and using those circumstances as a way to practice conventional bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta mind. And so, being familiarizing with the two bodhicitta mind through the practice throughout the day. When you are walking, you can think of, you have a nice place to walk because of so many people have made such a nice trail. There are certain people who are trying to keep it clean. There are certain people who are contributing towards that, all of that. And so that, then you try to remember the kindness of all other sentient beings. Through that, and by feeling their kindness, then you feel sense of compassion, closeness, dearness of them. Also, while you're walking, you can think about, interdependence of that, how everything is interdependent, that the path, the person that you are walking, how everything is interdependent, by depending on so many cause, condition, factors, how there is the path, how there is the people who walk, bike, the dog, everything. So same thing when you are eating, utilizing again that act of eating to develop loving kindness, compassion, by understanding how the food comes from, how many people and other sentient beings involved for us to enjoy that food, remembering their kindness, recognizing others' contribution, others directly, indirectly, so many others' contribution, others' kindness, and then praying, wishing and praying for them to have healthy, good life, happiness, positive life. So in that way, we use that to develop loving kindness, compassion. Also, we can use to think the interdependence of that. The food itself. And so, every activity that we do, we try to utilize is to meditate, contemplate on those two bodhicitta mind. And through that, familiarize with that. So then you don't have to find, you don't have to be so harsh on yourself, because you cannot find time to meditate and practice. Do you get it? Because you want to meditate and practice, but you cannot get half hour in the day to do that and sit. Because while you are driving, while you are walking, while you are eating, while you are in conversations, you can use all of them as a practice to develop loving kindness, compassion, as well as the wisdom. Then you have 12 hours for meditations. You are able to find 12-hour meditations wherever you go. No matter how other busy you are, you always have the opportunity, the time to meditate. And so, familiarizing that in that way all the time, okay? And as I mentioned yesterday, that bodhicitta mind, conventional bodhicitta mind, due to loving kindness, great loving kindness and compassion, and then out of that, when you have the strong wish to achieve your highest potential, fully enlightenment, at the very beginning, again, whether you are trying to generate motivation, whether you are trying to meditate on cushion, or whether you are trying to utilize any opportunity activities to develop that, at the very beginning, it required effort. At the very beginning, it requires effort. It is not effortless. And as you do more and more and more, then it started to become less and less effort. Just like our physical. When you are trying to do some physical, at the very beginning, it requires more effort with anything. Same with training with the mind. And then slowly, it becomes effortless. And when you have that bodhicitta mind effortlessly, day and night, and when that becomes natural, spontaneous, then you become bodhisattva. Then you enter the first path of the bodhisattva. Then you become the bodhisattva. But to reach that effortless, spontaneous state, of course, we have to start with the effort. Then the third power, the power of white seed or virtues, sometimes it's called white seed, the power of white seed. So throughout the day, in order to cultivate the true bodhicitta mind, and in order to maintain what has been cultivated, the bodhicitta mind, so that it does not deteriorate, but that we can maintain and started to improve, increase intensity and power of that from effort to effortless, and within the effortless, again from less intense to more intense power, like that, in order to progress further and further. Then again, we need many others supporting factors that we talked about yesterday. The 7 practice notes yesterday, I think, on Friday. And so again, we continue to create other positive cause and condition, the virtues, marriage, So making offering to the 3 jewels, the Buddha's 3 jewels, practicing the generosity in order to increase that to those in the needs. And many other formal practices, such as making tatas, mandala, making practice of mandala, and requesting the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Gurus, all of them, supplications, all of that. So engaging all other virtues, even though those practice might not be direct practice of the meditation on to bodhicitta mind, but that helps effect that. As we were mentioning, the main cause, primary cause, is meditation on true bodhicitta mind. But then these other virtues can act as supportive for that, to develop and to increase more. And so we try to do that. And especially Lama Tsongkhapa in his, Lamrim Chenmo, the Graduate Path, he said, when you try to listen to the Dharma teachings, you cannot understand, get it, or unable to hear properly, unable to. And when you try to reflect on the meaning of that, we struggle trying to understand the meaning of that. And even you don't struggle that, when you try to meditate, we are unable to make any kind of progress in our meditations. And not being able to have any realizations, even having meditated for a long time. When such things happens, then he said, the instructions in that is, relying on the power of the holy objects. And so that is what he said. So by relying on holy objects such as the merit field, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, then we try to take the refuge, we try to do the offerings, we try to do purifications, and in relation to all of that, and mandala offerings, all of that, then that can have, because certain cause and condition are missing there. Certain cause and condition are missing. So all these conditions come, then when you listen to the teaching, then it starts to make more sense. When you reflect on that, then you started to have more deeper understanding of the meanings. And when you meditate, then you started to have more realizations and more progress. And so when all these conditions come together, and so it is similar. And sometimes, some of the Kadamba master, I don't remember which Kadamba master said, when you are trying to meditate and there is blockage, sometimes there is blockage. You try, but it doesn't work. You try to concentrate, you are unable to concentrate. Maybe normally you are able to concentrate, but that day, sometimes, certain days, sometimes, you just cannot concentrate. And because you so very badly want to concentrate, that makes things worse. You wanted to do something so strongly, but unable to do it, become more frustrations. Do you get it? It leads to more frustrations. And so then things become worse. So instead of doing that, then when things happen, then just get up and do some purification practice, or some kind of mandala offering, some other form of offerings with more kind of physical as well as that, and other form of practice. And sometimes it helps that way, instead of being frustrated because you cannot concentrate, or frustrated because you cannot visualize well, or frustrated because you are not feeling the feeling. You want to get some feeling and you are not feeling that feelings. So that is, yes.
That would like doing Lama Chopa fall under power and virtues?
Yeah.
Like doing Lama Chopa or
that
sadhana, is that part of
yes.
Power and virtues?
Yeah, any other virtues.
Okay.
Especially here, is talking about during the off session, accumulating merit and doing purifications and making offering to the Tirijus, protectors, and so forth. Yeah. Then the fourth power is the power of overcoming the overcoming the interference, obstacles. I think sometime Lama Zopa has translated, the power of blaming the ego. And because the power of blaming the ego, egoistic mind. And so here again, the main, as we have already discussed yesterday, the main interference, obstacles to cultivate the conventional bodhicitta, loving kindness, compassion, and conventional Buddha is our egoistic mind, our self-centeredness. And so therefore, whenever we get an opportunity, we try to crush that egoistic mind, crush that selfish attitude, self-centeredness. At the moment, we treat our self-centeredness like a king. Okay? At the moment, we treat our selfish attitude or self-centeredness or the egoistic mind like a king. And that is why we have a difficult of cultivating true loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta mind. As long as it is there, as long as it's strong there, it's hard to develop that. So it has to be crushed. And so every opportunity you get, you crush it. Anything goes wrong, you blame that. And through that, crush it. At the moment anything goes wrong, we crush someone else, saying this is your fault. We humiliate others. We hurt others. We harm others. We blame others for all the problems. We crush them. And now instead of doing that, if you needed something to blame that egoistic mind, that self-centeredness. If we need to humiliate someone, humiliate that selfish attitude. If you want to hurt something, hurt that selfish attitude. If you want to destroy someone, destroy that selfish attitude. Through that, we don't get any opportunity, the selfish attitude to, even at the moment, is kind of like very arrogant, like the king, boss, You crush, so your selfish attitude become like this, so kind of not being able to even show up. And less selfish attitude, then easy to develop loving kindness, compassion. More selfish attitude, more difficult to develop loving kindness, compassion, and more problem. I just kind of received a kind of email from one of friends, because again she's going through a lot of difficulties with the relationship, job, a lot of things going in, and of course and she has been in Dharma for a few years, and of course like everyone else, you feel when so many problems arise at the same time, they will be overwhelming, and all negative emotions. And so anyway, she just wrote me recently that she's feeling better because now she sees all these challenges as an opportunity to practice her Dharma stronger. Even though her egoistic mind is saying, I'm the victim, in the relationship, I'm the victim. which we feel, our egoistic mind says that is how we feel. But then once we don't give to that egoistic mind and look from different perspective, then it's the time to practice more harder in your practice. Once she is able to see that, she's feeling much better with that. So it doesn't feel you are the victim, you know. The sense of feeling victim is kind of created by the selfish attitude, the self-centeredness. Because sometimes there is no victim. We both are victim, or none of us are victim. It is just that we have different relationship. Things didn't work out, you know. Things just doesn't work out. The others feel the victim, and I feel the victim. We all are feeling we are the victim. I think it's same everywhere, even in a big level. Even in this country, the president is feeling he's the victim of everyone else. He's feeling the victim of all the media, feeling the victim of all of progress, all of that, and also of the rest of others are feeling the victim of his policies, his actions, and so on. And that is how we feel and same in our every relationship. When we have any kind of relationship, when we have challenges, difficult in relationship, and we all feel same way, we are the victim. And it is due to that selfish attitude that we feel victim, because we cannot feel the pain of others, we only feel pain of ourselves. Do you get it? I feel I'm victim because I feel my pain, and therefore I'm suffering. But I don't see that pain of that person, so I don't see him or she suffering. So then it is hard to feel I'm the victim and that person is not the victim. But when there is less selfish, self-centered involved, not only we are suffering, but although other person is suffering, you are able to see that, and we all are struggling in that. And then there is less of that. And so anyway, yeah. So, from the very beginningless time, all the suffering, all the problem, all the conflict that we experience are directly, indirectly result of our selfish attitude, self-centeredness. The worst enemy is that. As Shantideva said in his Guhyasamaja way of life, the external enemies, can become a friend. We can become we might be enemy in certain part in our life, and then in certain part of life we can become a friend. Not only friend, but really good friends, which is we see all the time, country to countries. If you look at the history, we're fighting with some country who is allies now. Which were allies before, it is now enemy. Keep on changing. Enemy can become allies very easily. And we see that. If you try to not fight with the other enemy, and if you just kind of give up yourself, you can become a friend. We had conflict because we are unable to give up. We can become a friend if that. But the internal enemy of delusions, cannot become a friend. Always harm. Always harm. It has been harmful from the very beginning, and it is still harmful. No matter how you try to listen, still is harmful. Be friend with it, harmful. External enemy, they can last as an enemy for one lifetime. This internal enemy, from the beginning of lifetime, it has been that bad, and it will continue to be that. External enemy does not harm us all the time. They are preoccupied with so many other things to think of harming us all the time. There are so many things to take care of in their life. But this internal enemy, there's no other job than harm us, hurt us. That is their job. No other job. The external enemy, the worst it can do is take our life. That's all. But this internal enemy, it destroys our inner peace, our inner joy, happiness. It destroys, the virtues of the past. It leads to lower rebirth. It's this internal enemy that is kind of tightening up us from achieving nirvana, liberations. And so when you think of that, then you see this internal enemy is the worst enemy. So recognizing that is important. At the moment, we don't recognize that. We recognize external enemy is much worse than the internal enemy. So therefore our attention is more with the external enemy than the internal enemy. If we really recognize this internal enemy is worse, we'll be giving more attention to this instead of external enemy. But that doesn't seem to be. So that is the power of blaming ego, overcoming the selfish attitude. Then the fifth, the power of prayer. And then, at the end of every virtuous activity that we engage into, whether we are doing meditations, whether we are making an offering, whether we are doing a refuge, whether accumulating merit, purification, whatever form of practice, whatever form of meditation that we might be doing. At the end, we always dedicate with the higher dedications. And we dedicate all these virtues, whatever we might have created, for us to cultivate the true bodhicitta mind, to be able to cultivate and to be able to develop fully the true bodhicitta mind. So we dedicate. And through cultivation of the bodhicitta mind, may we be able to achieve fully enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, so that we can lead each and every sentient being to that fully enlightenment. So dedicating like that way. By the power of these virtues or merit that I've created, may I never be separated from the true bodhicitta mind, even in dreams. Not only true when we are awake, but even when you are asleep and even in dream, may I never be separated from that true bodhicitta mind. May I always be with the bodhicitta mind, not only during the awaking state, but even during the sleeping state, during the dream state, all the time. And of course, if we can practice not only during the daytime, even in even sleeping like a dream time, dream state time, then of course, again, we have so much time to practice. And some of the practitioners, they do that. Shantideva is known for that. So basically, dedicating for the two bodhicitta mind to be cultivated, to develop, and within oneself, within all sentient beings. And so that is the meaning of that. And then what it was, the five power, themselves of the great vehicles, precept on the transference of consciousness, cultivate those part of the practice. And so here is saying the practice of the five power at the time of death. So in terms of the, it's the same except slightly of the power of the white seed. The meaning of power of the white seed might be slightly different at the time of death. So here is saying at the time of death, then the power of seed is to let go of, before you die, then all the things that you need to give, you give, whatever you need to give, whether you want to make to a, charity, generosity to those individual organizations, those who help in the needs of those who are poor, who are most needy, making offering to the holy objects, Buddha Dhamma Sanghas, temples, centers, sanghas. So basically, and then if you need to give to others, your friends, children, parents, whatever, and give. So basically, before you die, you just kind of take all care so that when you die, you don't have any weightage and clinging towards any of that. Okay? Otherwise, at the time of death, when you should be focusing the Dharma, your mind will be too occupied of worries. What is going to do this? Because you have not taken care of all of them. Therefore, in your mind keep on. So it's difficult. It is easy. I mean, yeah. So it's much more sensible that to take those decisions earlier, and so that when you do die, at the time of death, then you can just focus without any worry and without any clinging, grasping. Otherwise, some people struggle at the time of death because they are holding on certain things. Holding on certain things. And also sometimes people suffer because they have a lot of fear and worry what is going to happen because they haven't taken care of all of that. So their mind is not in peace and they cannot concentrate. And so that is the practice of the power of the white seed at the time of death. And then the power of the intention, motivation, at the time of death. You make a strong intention, motivations to develop the two bodhicitta mind and to practice to develop and to cultivate the bodhicitta mind while at the time of death, after the death in intermediate stage, in the futures, lifetime, until you achieve enlightenment, and especially in those times, and making strong intention, motivations to develop those qualities and to cultivate, and then the power of, similarly the power of blaming the egos, at the time of death. Sometimes maybe you might have physical discomfort, sometimes sudden negative emotion might arise due to your physical beings, because you cannot move, it's harder, you cannot communicate, all of that, because everything become more difficult, everything become more challenging, more you lose your more independent, you have to be more relying on others to everything. So due to all of that, sometimes our mind can be kind of disturbed, and our mind, sudden negative emotion can arise, fear, worry, guilty, regret, all kind of those different whatever that can arise, anger, resentment, all those negative emotions can arise. And whatever arises, be aware of that, and then all this arising due to the selfish attitude, self-centeredness. All of this is self-centeredness. It's not because of me, it's not because of others. So you don't need to blame others, you don't need to blame yourself. The problem with us is either blame others or blame ourselves. Blame others and we become very harsh on others. Or blame ourselves and become very harsh on ourselves. Neither is helpful and healthy. And sometimes, because maybe we are so used to blaming, maybe you always feel that you need an object to blame, then selfish attitude, blame to that. That selfish attitude is not you. Yeah? Remember that. Selfish attitude is not you, is one of those emotions, negative emotion, which is not you, which is not who you are. So blaming selfish attitude is not blaming yourself. Do you get it? And we have to make clear distinguishing of that. We don't need to blame any sentient beings. When you blame yourself, you are blaming one of sentient beings. And so when those things happen, physical, emotional discomfort, all of that, then, and so when you see that, then through that, then again we crush the selfish attitude, the self-centeredness. We crush it, we destroy it, we kind of, And the power of humility, and then at the time of death, we try to meditate on loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, conventional ultimate bodhicitta mind as much as possible. And if possible, we can do Tonglen practice as much as possible. By understanding our own suffering at the time of death, our physical discomfort, our emotional discomfort, and the suffering of dying, all of that, again, with our own experience, again, recognizing so many people are going through that same process. So many sentient beings have gone through that, so many sentient beings are going through that, and many of them who are not going now, they will be also going through that in the future. Of course, there could be slightly different level, Some have a little bit more physical discomfort than others. Some have a little bit more emotional discomfort than others. All of that there is, but to a certain level, all about that. And through that, then you try to cultivate, understand, relate, and feel compassion for all sentient beings, because of they all go through that suffering, same. And then again, by me experiencing all this May they never have to experience that. May I be able to experience on behalf of them. May I be able to take all their suffering of all of this on myself. May they be ripened on myself. And then you can do, if you can, then you can do the visualization of taking the suffering. And may all my happiness, my all virtues ripen on themselves. And then you send them that. And you can do tonglen and practice. So that is the practice of humility, the actual practice. And then the prayer, the dedications, and again dedicating, due to all the virtues that I have created in the past, which I am creating now, and due to all the virtues that I will be creating in the future, as well as all others virtues, may I never be separated from the true Bodhisattva mind until I achieve enlightenment. Especially, and particularly now and at the intermediate stage, after the death and the futures. May I never be separated from Bodhisattva, even for a moment. May Bodhisattva mind, may the true Bodhisattva mind develop. And through that, may I be able to achieve my highest potential, fully enlightened, and lead each and every sentient being to fully enlightenment. So we try to dedicate that way. And so here, if you say, if we can do those practices at the time of death, then that will be the best power. Power means transference of the consciousness to a higher rebirth. Someone doing power for you, not guaranteed. And even you try to pour yourself with your own visualizing, also not guaranteed. But this one, if you die with the Bodhisattva mind, you can be guaranteed to have higher rebirth. So here that is, and therefore His Holiness Dalai Lama always says, he always says, he said when he died, he said he will rely on the Bodhisattva mind. If there is something you can rely on with 100% sure, then Bodhisattva mind, the practice of that. If you can die with positive mind, virtuous mind, such as Bodhisattva mind, you can be sure of have a better rebirth. You can be sure of that you will have a higher rebirth. So if you practice like that, Bodhisattva, when you are alive, then you have less conflict with others. Your mind is more peace. When you don't have conflict, your mind is more peace, more calm. With peaceful mind, you are able to concentrate better, do things better, whatever you. And then, of course, you are able to be more gentle, kind, compassionate yourself to others. And your life becomes much more meaningful. Much more meaningful. At the same time, you are creating cause and condition for higher rebirth and fully enlightenment. You come closer and closer to that. And at the time of death, also you have less regret, more peace, more calm, So peaceful death, positive peaceful death, and then you will have also higher rebirth. And so it helps all through life, death, after death. So we have a break here. No, we were stopping at 2:30, isn't it? 12? 12:30, yeah? Okay, we have time. Then I think maybe we need a break. Do we need a break? Yeah, I think it seems like 5-10 minutes. If you need to stretch your legs, and if you need to get a tea, or if you need to go to the bathroom.
Sunday's nice. Sunday's so peaceful. I don't know why. I don't know why it comes on God that way. To be peaceful. Everywhere, like it's quiet. No cars, no driving by. What's going on? I mean, yeah, it's a high period. It's everything is being good. You know?
People that party on Saturday.
Yeah, and they go sleep. Yeah. Intense though. Intense.
She got caught in traffic yesterday because of the race.
Oh yeah, they're raised. Even though I knew what was going on, I still, because I moved. I live in Eckington now.
Where?
Eckington?
Where's that?
Off Rhode Island.
I know.
Off Rhode Island.
Oh, right, okay.
I know.
Okay, 12th Street, I got it.
I'm on I'm on New Street Northeast,
Okay.
between 4th Street Northeast and 3rd Street.
So you can so you stick some of your
Well, yesterday or Friday night when I first come here in home, I hadn't been out here since 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which one would you take? 495?
It was really confusing. Because I used to live out here to where I live with Jeff, and it took me, like I saw where I got off at the same stop I would have gotten off for my last job when I first moved here, coming from Jeff, but the highways that took me on were, I don't even, it was like, no. I just kept on getting more highways and more highways and more highways, so it'll be interesting when I go home to yeah, I know where I should get off because I got off from the place where I got off from my old job. So.
Takes a while.
Yeah, and then
Having these GPSs is really nice. I have been finding routes all the years I lived here. So,
That takes you somewhere going so
Yeah.
dead end drag.
well, then there's that.
yeah, I think the GPS yesterday actually knew where some of the closures were.
Oh, wow.
Because I thought I looked at the map and I thought it was okay, I can't go the way I should go from where I live. So it's like, okay, I'll go back to where I used to live, which is like 12 minutes away, and then go that way. And it wouldn't let me go the way I wanted to go. And where I was on the streets, I couldn't myself navigate a map.
Right.
And the GPS just wouldn't let me go where I thought I wanted to go. And then once I got into Rockford Park, I could see that there were some police blocking off areas.
So
So I saw
And
areas
yet on a
of,
regular basis, it tries to send me out 66 that are closed at that time of day. Regularly. And so you get, now you pass the exit you needed to take that one's closed. I never trusted.
I know sometimes
How can you not know that? You know something random like a one-day race is closed. I don't know how it works. I don't know where they get their data, but.
yeah, so that was like really strange. There's some parts of Georgetown that I've never seen.
You went to Georgetown?
and that's how I like ended up leaving this city.
In Georgetown.
Yeah.
Wow.
But not the way I normally would go through Georgetown. So
Yeah.
I saw parts of it that like
Yeah.
I've just never seen. So I don't even know what street I was on. I was just following. I was
So,
on
so you checked all the street, you tried all the directions, and you know
I
what's
ended
going
up
on?
putting my GPS on, and it just like kept, it like put me in Wisconsin for a very long time, and that was really backed up.
Yeah.
It was, I think I waited on that street for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, this is my life right now. Which last year when Geshe was here, the same time I didn't know about the road closures. I didn't realize the race was happening.
Oh, it was last year too.
And so last year, like, it took me the same amount of time without being late. This year, nothing new. I'm like, I don't know, I didn't learn.
Ding 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 ding.
The schedule is very complicated.
Okay, I'm fine. I can wait until the break.
So the measure of having trained the mind, so the fifth point,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
So like emotion, like anger or attachment, is very easy to catch sometimes.
Mhm.
How do you catch the self preoccupied mind? How do you catch it? The emotion, how do you catch it? How do you know it is the self-centered mind, or it's just another thought?
Yeah, I think it requires a lot of mindfulness meditations. So mindfulness meditation, if you learn to be mindful of your thoughts and sensations due to that in your body, due to those emotions, in every day, if you learn to do that, then over the time, then you will be able to, before it arises, you see some symptoms, and then you will be, it's like a alarm, light, something before it goes wrong, then there is a ping, 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 you know that it's going to be a problem, so you can take care of it. Similarly, then there are certain symptoms, sometimes on physical sensations, sometimes, and that is a symptom of certain emotions that could manifest. Sometimes you can see on emotional level, even though the anger is not arises, but certain symptoms that you will aware, and if you are aware of those things, then it will be more easy to easy to take care of, because you catch up before even it arises. And so again, it requires a long-term mindfulness meditation and basically being aware of your thoughts, your actions, your speech all the time. Just learning.
So you mean you need come abiding?
More than come abiding, just learning to be aware. Always watching your thoughts. watching your thoughts all the time and being aware of those thoughts. And it requires training, just like anything else. And then you get more used to it, then you don't have to, at the beginning you have to put effort, but slowly, then it requires less and less effort, Your mind automatically go into that directions. Just like our physical or mental impulsive behavior, sometimes, because we have been doing that same thing all the time. It just automatically, immediate response, whether on physical level or emotional level, is without any kind of effort, without any conscious effort. It just, in the same way, also on the positive side, when you train that set, then your mind get into that, and automatically it just become mindful in that way over the time. Yeah. So here talking, how do we know that we have made some progress? When we have trained in mind training such as this, how do we know we have made some progress? What's the measure? How do we know? So that's what it's talking here. The measure of having trained the mind. So then, primarily there are a few kind of signs where you can check, and through those signs, then you know that you have made some progress of having trained in your meditation, your practices. One is integrate all the teachings into one thought. So what it says is all the teachings and the practice that instructed by the Buddha, all the teachings, all the different teachings throughout the different turning of the wheel of Dharma the Buddha gave, they all are directed towards the teachings, the practices, all gathered towards reducing and overcoming the selfish attitude and the ignorance and all the delusion that arises due to those two main internal enemies. So one thought, all teachings, all this practice should be directed towards reducing that fundamental ignorance and the selfish attitude and the delusion that arises from that. So when having practiced the Dharma, having practiced the Lojong, mind training practices, when you begin to see some reductions of your delusions, your selfish attitude, your ignorance, then that is one sign that your practice has become some success. You have made some success in your practice, that you are making a success. We practice whatever form of meditations, so many different form of practice meditation there are. But when your delusions, your selfish attitude, your delusion are increasing, then we are not making progress. When you started to feel, oh, I'm special than others, I'm more enlightened, others are unenlightened. I'm more compassionate, others are less compassionate. I'm more spiritual, others are less spiritual. When we started to have that kind of sense of arrogance, sense of superiority oneself than others, then maybe our practice is not making much progress, or our practice is not going in the right directions. We have to think about it. What's wrong with our practice? Maybe the way we are doing is not correct. Something's wrong there. But when we begin to see, maybe at the very beginning, before you practice, maybe we used to be very short-tempered, With practice now, you still have anger, but it doesn't last so long like before. Or it is not as intense as before. That is sign of progress. Anger is not totally gone. You still get angry, but it doesn't last for long. It's a progress. Before, you get out of control, but now you get angry but not out of control. That is progress. Before, it's easy all the time, but now it arises but not easily and not frequent as before. It's a sign of progress. So, like that, when those things, before you are very easily, because of our attachment, we easily get disappointed with everything because of not getting what we want, and we always want something all the time. And now you are not as so disappointed easily. That's a sign of some progress. So like that, when you see sudden delusions are becoming less, and diminishing, becoming more weak, more less, then that is one sign that you are making some progress in your practice, in your meditation, in your Dharma practice, in your mind training. Yes.
I've been seeing some progress in some of the things, but then in other areas I'm seeing more problems.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of what you're speaking to, I'm able to understand why in some of the area I'm feeling like I'm actually going backwards. So it's very helpful, these teachings. But when you're not here, and maybe a month from now or 2 months from now, and I see like, okay, here's progress here, but over here it's like really out of control. How can I start to discern where is the problem with my practice?
Uh-huh. Well, I think there is another verses that comes also down there in terms of focusing that. But also, of course, ideally, through our practice meditation, we would like to reduce all the delusions and overcome all the delusion eventually. Okay? But that does not happen overnight. It does not happen overnight. Maybe it might take many lifetimes, to do that, all of that. As long as we are making some progress in some area, that's good, And then where things are getting worse, then we have to figure out why I'm not making progress there, and why it is getting worse. So we have to find, maybe we might have different, not everyone has same reasons to fall in that, and so that is something we have to reflect, contemplate, and see, and try to understand, and then try to see, maybe I'm not giving enough attention to this particular practice. Maybe I need to give more attention to this particular practice, Or, so then trying to find and then trying to apply whatever technique, meditation, practice that we can apply to that in that. But at the same time also we shouldn't be expecting by those practice meditation that all the delusions will be immediately kind of same, And as he will come there later, he says, first we have to recognize the most strongest delusions. Because individually we might have more stronger different delusion than others. Some people have more problem with anger. Some people have less problem with anger. They have more problem with, this kind of arrogant. Some people have less problem with that. Some people have more problem of strong attachments. So we can have a different, even though we might have all of those delusions, but some are more problematic, stronger and problematic too. So we have to identify ourselves looking, and then Whatever is more stronger, whatever is more problematic, first we try to deal with that by applying certain meditation that concern particularly on that particular emotions, focusing more on that. And then after then other delusions which are more subtle, then we deal with that later. Because we cannot deal with that everything at once, at the moment, until you have the wisdom realizing emptiness directly. Yes, please.
Can we say most of the delusions coming from the self-grasping?
Yes, the fundamental ignorance of the self-grasping, yeah. And sometimes, no, definitely all the delusion arise from self-grasping or the fundamental ignorance. But these two, selfish attitude or self-centeredness and this self-grasping ignorance, they kind of they complement each other. They help each other, you know. And so that is the thing. Together, then they make things much worse. It's two naughty guys coming together, you know. When they are by themselves, they are less powerful. And when they two come together, then they become very powerful. Yes.
What you were saying about, I started my practice because I was dealing with a lot of anger. And I feel I've made a lot of progress on that over the years. And what's come in its place, though, is pride in my progress, which becomes arrogance. Because people say, hey, wow, your practice is really strong. That's great. And then I feel good about that. But then I notice it. And so I'm wondering if, as what you just said was, you kind of, when one thing goes down, something else comes up. It's because I'm not dealing with the root adequately, which is the self-grasping mind.
Definitely, the root of arrogance is also that self-grasping ignorance. So of course, all the delusion are rooted in that. And so therefore, that is where we need to hear those teachings, a reminder of those teachings. Yes, I'm making progress on this area. I'm making of less anger, but I shouldn't be too proud and arrogant about that, you know. So all is balancing, you know. When you start to become arrogant, then we have to meditate indifferently. Then where we are not making progress. When we feel low, then we need to progress on something which uplifts something which you are making progress, because you feel, you know. So all is balancing of all of that. And so so definitely, so that is where that is the problem, like danger that we, just like as you said, you know, there is that danger to our if we are not mindful and if we don't watch ourselves. Because we are more spiritual, then we think those people who are materialistic and not spiritual, we tend to see they are less than us. Do you get it? Because we feel we are spiritualists, and they are materialistic. And their sense of feeling we are superior than them. Again, that is another problem, another delusion. And when we practice compassion, and because by nature or through practice, maybe we are more compassion, sense of caring, loving for others who are suffering and that. And there are other people who doesn't seem to have that kind of qualities, you know, who doesn't seem to care whether others suffering or not. Again, we think, oh, those people are uncompassionate, bad people. We are compassionate people. Sense of, again, superiority. Again, sense of arrogance. Again, we have to be very, very mindful of all of those. And again, because one can meditate, and good meditate, concentrate, meditate, and then you find some people who are not meditating or doesn't know how to meditate, or they cannot meditate for a while, and then we think, oh, I'm a great meditator. They are less. again, this sense of feeling good about oneself is not a problem, as long as you don't have sense of putting others down and feeling that you are more superior than others less than yourself. Feeling good about your practice, feeling good about yourself is something positive, as long as you don't have that. Feeling yourself good at the same time not putting others down, that is not a problem. But sometimes feeling about good about for what we are and what we are for whatever, at the same time the sense of putting others down who are not like that. That is the way the delusion comes. Yeah. So yeah. So it is a very that's one of the danger that when we started to meditate practice, where that kind of superiority might come, and then that become obstacles. That become obstacles for your spiritual growth. It become obstacle for your own spiritual growth, because while you are making progress in one area, you are kind of not becoming worse on another area. So therefore it becomes an obstacle for your spiritual growth. So that also other, when we have that kind of sense of attitude, the other people also feel around that. So the people who are not same like us, people who are materialistic, they feel our attitude of looking down on materialistic and unspiritual people. They can feel that sense. And then it put them away. It kind of create gap. But while you do your meditation practice, and if you don't have that sense of that, and if the other people doesn't feel, they might be more more enchanted and wanting to learn, because they see something positive change in you, and they see something positive in that, and they want to automatically you kind of inspire them wanting to do kind of learn in that. But when they see that attitude, then it put them up, it distant, it put a gap. And so those are the things we have to be mindful, very mindful of those things, and work on that, so that we doesn't end up being like that. And sometimes, we need a teaching like this, or someone to remind us. Sometimes by ourselves, sometimes we are not aware of that. Okay, so we'll have a break, and then we meet at 2. Samjo Samjo Rinpoche, Mache Pana Kekuche, Kyawa Nyamba Meba, Konde Kondo Pewa. Thank you.